Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I am coming back today with another special video. This video is going to share my delivery story, my labor and delivery story. Mother's Day is on Sunday, and I just felt like, you know what, let me just tell my exciting labor and delivery story. I had my son September 22nd, 2019, and my entire pregnancy was phenomenal. I did not vomit one time. I just had extreme fatigue, but my pregnancy was normal. I had a perfect pregnancy, no gestational diabetes, no high blood pressure. The only cons and the bad things that I experienced were hemorrhoids. I did have an issue with hemorrhoids during my pregnancy, and it sucked. I also had like a skin rash that broke out during my first trimester. My back was itchy, my shoulders, and my husband had to like wash my back off, put alcohol everywhere, and lotion me down really good for the itching to stop. So those were the bad things that I experienced during pregnancy. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my labor and delivery experience. So on Thursday, leading up to my labor, I started to have like back pains, like a little bit of cramping here and there. So I knew that something was a little bit weird. I had my son at 39 weeks in a few days anyways, just to throw that out there. So by Friday, the pain had got more intense. My back was hurting. I started experiencing more cramping, and I was having a lot of pain on my right side. So I was at home by myself that night because my husband was just finishing up a tour. And he had a local show right in Raleigh, which was not far. My doctor approved him to continue traveling because this was our first child. And she said, you'll have time to make it from Raleigh if your wife water breaks. So go ahead and work and do what you got to do. So we were fine with him being, down the street, basically, which is like an hour and a half from me. But I was home and I was in pain. And I kept, he kept texting me, are you okay? Whatever, just lay down, relax, get some rest. So that's what I did. At about 3 that morning, I went to the bathroom and I wiped and I saw a little bit of blood and a little bit of mucus. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm scared. So I called my doctor and she was like, everything you're experiencing is normal. Your lining is thinning out. Just continue to rest or whatever. You're fine. So Saturday, my sister came and she said, oh, well, I'll just hang out with you since your husband is working this weekend. I'll hang out with you in case we have to go to the hospital. So she came here, and that Saturday evening at about 5 o'clock, I couldn't take the pain anymore. My pain was like more severe. I was still having this severe pain on my right side. So she took me to the labor and delivery hospital. So they checked me in, they checked me. I had dilated 1 freaking centimeter. After all that pain, I was like, are you serious? But 1 centimeter. So they sent me back home and she told me the reason why you're having pain on that side is because he's on a nerve. You have a really big baby. He's on one of your nerves, which is causing this pain. Because I was like, why am I only hurting on one side? This ain't no contraction. Don't my whole body supposed to hurt? So she was like, well, what you could do is just go get you one of those things that lift your stomach up and keep it in place to keep him, from doing so much tossing and turning, whatever she said. So we didn't find one. So I went home. That night I could not sleep in my bed. I was in so much pain, hurting very bad. The pain moved from one side to my whole cooch area, to my back, it was so bad. So my sister was like, you need to go back to the hospital. You need to call the hospital. I was like, well, she told me, she said, when you can't talk, when you can't walk, when you call me, I'm going to know when you're ready. Right now, you're still talking, okay? You're not ready. Just stay home. So anyways, that Saturday night, I tossed and turned. Contractions were coming. I could feel the contractions. The pain was kind of bad. So all night long, my sister was up with me all night long. Like, you need to call the doctor. You need to call the doctor. I was like, no, I'm fine. She don't want me to call her right now. Well, Sunday morning, my sister went out and got me some breakfast. And when she came back, I was sitting on the couch eating my oatmeal from McDonald's. And I was like, oh, a contraction. And I stood up and the pain was so bad. I could not walk. I could not talk. I was in severe pain. So I said, let me call the doctor because I think I'm in labor. So I called the doctor, and as I'm calling her, another contraction hit. And this one was so bad, it made me cry. Like, I was in tears. I could not talk. I could barely breathe. And so my doctor's on the other end and my sister's trying to talk to her. And she was like, no, let me talk to her. Let me talk to her. I'll wait until she get herself together. So finally, I got myself together and she was like, you are definitely in labor. You need to go ahead on and come to the hospital. You sound worse off than what you did last night. So my husband came on home from his weekend of working. He headed on to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I was 4 centimeters dilated. They gave me some medicine that made me feel like I was out of my mind. I don't know what it was. And it did ease the pain for a little while. So once they got me into a room, they decided I was going to stay. They asked me, what type of medication are you getting? I said, a freaking epidural. Okay, I want an epidural. So the anesthesiologist came in after a little while. And she gave me an epidural. My epidural experience, I don't really remember it because I was in so much pain from contractions. I didn't care about no back pain. I'm like, give it to me. I don't care. Just give it to me. So they gave it to me. Laying in bed for a little while. I'm not sure how long it was, but they had this thing stuck up in my vagina attached to my son's head, I think, so that they can keep a track of his heart rate. Well, they did give me medicine to induce my labor to speed things up. And, on his little heart monitor screen, every time I would have a contraction, his heart rate would go up. Oh, let me back up. So once they put me in the room, before they gave me the epidural, she broke my water. Let me say that. She did break my water. And so his heart rate kept going up and down. And then at one point, I was like, something don't feel right. I was like, I'm starting to feel the numbness wear off. And so I called my nurse in, who was sweet but insensitive. She had never had a child. She did not know what we experienced in labor. So she was just like brushing me off. And I was like, I think this epidural is wearing off because I don't feel the same way I felt when you first put it in. So she was going back and forth with me until finally I was like, I'm feeling contractions again. I'm feeling this really weird pressure. Something is going on. So she went back and forth with me for so long that all my epidural wore off, and I was feeling completely everything again. I was in a lot of pain, so I don't remember how long. I wasn't even counting time. It felt like forever. So they called the anesthesiologist back into the room and they gave me another dose of epidural medication or whatever it is to numb my body. Relaxed. Here we go again. Pain. I could feel it. It wore off again. Okay. So my epidural wore off twice. So I was a little bit frustrated. I was like, Mom, because my mom was in the room, my mother-in-law was in the room, my husband and my sister. And I was like, why did this have to happen to me? Everybody else's epidural work, and she was just like, girl, calm down. You're going to be fine. So like I said, his heart rate was going all up and down, doing some funky stuff. So they put fluid back up in my body, because they said they wanted to keep him from being into distress. So once my epidural wore off the second time, I laid there in the most pain because they had induced my labor, which I think made the pain magnify. So I was just like in a lot of pain, just frustrated. And I told the nurse to go get my midwife. My midwife was sent from heaven. She was the one that I loved when I went to my doctor's office, and she was the one that was on call the weekend that I went into labor. And it was only God, because she was phenomenal. I would not have been able to do it without her. But anyway, the nurse who was getting on my last nerve, who eventually was nice and we got along, but I almost snapped on her. My husband was looking at me like, don't do it. Do not snap on this lady up in here. So I calmed down because I didn't want to make him shame. But anyway, when they got my midwife, and I was like, listen, I want a C-section. I said, my baby heart rate is acting funky. My blood pressure is starting to rise. You guys are not going to wait until my baby is about to die or me and rush me into an emergency C-section. I want a C-section right now. So she said, well, let me call your doctor and ask your doctor. So she called the doctor. She came back in. She said, well, she wants you to wait another 45 minutes to see if you're going to dilate some more on your own. Now, mind you, my epidural had wore off and I was only 4 centimeters dilated. So I waited for over 45 minutes, probably like an hour and a half. And the doctor came in and she was like, so it's not working for you? And I was like, no, this is my 3rd day in labor. Like, I've been having contractions since Friday night. Today is Sunday and I'm tired. So she went over all the things about the things that could go wrong with the C-section and everything. So they rolled me back there. At this point, I was in contractions. They was trying to switch me from my bed to the operation table. I could barely move. And they were like, you're going to have to move. We can help you get over the pain if you just get up. And I'm like, I can't freaking move. I'm hurting. So eventually they moved me over. They gave me a medicine that numbed me completely. When I laid back, they put oxygen up my nose. And this was the scary part. I felt like I was going to die. I felt like an elephant had sat on my chest and that I was losing my air. I felt like I could not breathe. I kept telling them, I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. And so my midwife, she holds my hand and she's like, Quashonda, your oxygen levels are fine. You're having an anxiety attack. Just calm down and squeeze my hand. Calm down and rub my hand. So I was like, where's my husband? I just need my husband in here because I feel like I can't breathe. So eventually my husband came in and he held my hand and I calmed down and they cut the baby out. And my husband's over my shoulder like, oh my God, he's so big. Oh my God. Like the whole room was just like, he has so much hair. And I'm just looking, trying to see him and I couldn't see him. Shortly after he was born, his body temperature was not at the correct number. And I had an infection that had developed in my stomach towards the end. They were thinking that maybe the bag had leaked fluid and it caused an infection. But anyways, he had to go to the NICU. So they took him out of me. They gave him to my husband. He held him. They laid him on my chest. And the sweetest thing is he was crying up a storm. They unwrapped him and they laid him on my naked chest. And I said, oh, baby, mommy loves you. He stopped crying and turned his little head into my direction. And me and my husband almost lost it. It was the most precious thing I wish we could have recorded. As soon as they picked him up and took him away from me, he started crying again. He went into the NICU. He stayed in the NICU for about 3 days. I remember being extremely drugged after my C-section. I was so drugged up. I was just like not even in my right mind that I don't even think I could have cared for my baby that night. So him being in the NICU, his first night in the hospital probably was better for him and me. And that was basically it about my labor and delivery story. Even though it was like rough during, at the end, I think I would still do it again. I would do it all over. I wish I could have paused that moment in time. The birth of my son was just a blessing. And so after I had him, about a week and a half later, I started having, my mom and my sister had spent the night with me because my husband had to work out of town. And I was falling asleep on the couch because I could not lay in bed. The C-section pain was like kind of rough. I'm not really a medication taker, so I probably wasn't staying on my meds as I should. And so I was in the chair and I was sleeping. When I woke up, my mom said, Shonda, you sound funny breathing. You probably want to make sure you're not getting pneumonia and all that stuff from the surgery. So I started developing a cough, started feeling like chills. I just felt really bad. So my sister said, well, let's go to the ER. So we went into the emergency room and it was so packed in there. I almost had an anxiety attack. All I could think about was all those germs that I was bringing back to my baby. And I told my sister, I was like, I can't do it. This was a Saturday night. I said, we're going to leave and I'm just going to go to an urgent care in the morning. So that's what I did. Went to urgent care. They checked me and I kept telling my doctor, all I need is an inhaler. This is just bronchitis from me being in the hospital with the air conditioning. And he was like, no, I know you think that's what it is. I'll give you an epidural treatment to help with the coughing. He said, but you just had a C-section and there's a possibility you could have a blood clot in your lung. So he sent me over to do all this stuff and the results came back the next day and I had a blood clot in my lung, a very small blood clot. So after they did a procedure, I had to go and get like dye shot in like through an IV that made my body really warm. It was a horrible procedure. And like I said, they did see a blood clot in my lung. So when my doctor from the urgent care said you need to go to your OBGYN office. They're going to give you a shot in your stomach and you're going to have to take medication over a course of time. So when I get to my OBGYN office, now at this point I had a panic attack. I was crying. I was in an uproar. I don't want to die. I was scared. And my husband was like, you need to calm down. So he went with me to the doctor to get my shot and had our little, 1-month-old son, almost a month-old son in the waiting room. And so I went to the doctor office. He checked my blood pressure. The nurse checked my blood pressure and was like, your blood pressure is kind of high. And I said, well, yeah, I've been crying. I'm upset. Like I'm nervous about all the stuff that's going on. So she was like, okay. So she checked it again. And she was like, I still don't like it. It's too high. So then she took me into another room. My doctor came in. He checked my blood pressure 4 times and it was still wouldn't go down. So he looked at me and said, I'm calling the hospital to get you a room. You need to go there immediately. Like, don't stop. Don't go nowhere else. Go straight to the hospital. So, of course, I walk out in the lobby and the nurse is telling my husband she needs to go straight to the hospital. And the last he heard was that I had a blood clot. So, of course, he was scared to death. So I called my mom and she was like, okay, I'm coming to get the baby. I'm coming to get the baby. So you guys won't have to worry about him in the hospital. So I stayed in the hospital for about 4 days with this blood pressure issue. The blood clot in my lung, they were not too worried about. It was just that my blood pressure was really high. They tested me for everything under the sun. I did have really bad edema. I think I'm pronouncing that right. In my legs and feet after I had the baby. I could barely walk. My legs were swollen. My feet were swollen. I mean, it looked like elephant legs and feet. Like, it lasted for almost a month after I had him. I couldn't wear any of my shoes. Like, it was bad. And they kept telling me, it's normal, it's normal. You're going to be okay. But they didn't go down until after I got out of the hospital the second time. So they checked me for everything under the sun. They checked my heart. They checked me for blood clots. And they didn't find anything. So they just basically gave me some blood pressure medicine that I was on for about 3 months. And I just got off my blood thinner medicine for 6 months. I had to be on that for 6 months. I just had another chest x-ray last week. My blood clot is gone and life is back to normal. So I did not get postpartum depression, thank God. I'm surprised that I didn't with all that I had went through after I had him. But that is my labor and delivery story, my story. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but if you have a C-section and you don't feel right in your chest area, a few weeks later, you don't need to take it lightly. You need to go to the doctor and make sure you don't have blood clots. Luckily, it was only a small one in my lung and they caught it just in time. I've read where some women were almost at death's door not knowing what it was. So make sure that if you feel discomfort in your chest, they said even if you push the baby out, you still have a risk of blood clots. So just keep that in mind if you have some chest pains or whatever to go get checked. So that's my labor and delivery story, my pregnancy story, and just wanted to share it with you guys. Thank you.